Ohio State, Michigan is finally here. We're going to take a historical look at this great series. Plus, we have other season ending rivalry games going on in the Big Ten. We'll look at them all right here. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked on Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Shemon. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. You know we always appreciate it. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday as well. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We want to thank Woody and Bo for this great series that we get to enjoy here this weekend. We're going to look back at the 10-year war and everything else that happened in this series over the last century or so. Plus, it is Big Ten rivalry weekend for all the schools in action. And we'll close it out with our PigSkin Picks. Been pretty good this year. See how we do here at the end of the program. Be sure to subscribe down below and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Well, on our previous Locked On Big Ten podcast right before Thanksgiving on Wednesday, we really broke down the X's and the O's, the Ohio State-Michigan series, or this game, I should say. You can go back and check it out. Again, it was from Wednesday, and wherever you get your podcast, it'll be right there, or on our website at talkbig1010.com. But today, before we break down all the other Big Ten games this rivalry weekend, I want to take a look at the history of Ohio State and Michigan and add some of my favorite memories as too, because I've been around long enough to see a few of these over the years. And for you youngsters dialed into us here today, of course, we are looking back on this game. It's called The Game. That's what we call it, The Game. No other description is really needed for this over time. And I'm not talking about the rapper, The Game, either. This is the football game, The Game. The Buckeyes and the Wolverines. It's so big, that's what the name is called, The Game. These are the two winningest programs in college football. Last week, the Wolverines' win at Maryland was the school's historic 1,000th win. And that's the most in college football in history. The second winningest program of all time, you guessed it, the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're about 3 years or so from their 1,000th win at this current pace. So two very good, rich programs going head-to-head in this game. The winner of this game historically is usually used to going to the Rose Bowl to play the Pac-10 champion. But things are a little different now, and the winner of this game usually goes on to the Big Ten championship and a trip to college football's playoffs. And that's what usually is on the line between these two. So it's always been very, very serious. Many think that this is the greatest rivalry of all time. I agree with them. There are others that'll chime in and say, look, there's the Iron Bowl. Something the Duke, North Carolina basketball series is greater. And hoops, maybe the Packers, Bears is the best. No, bar none. It's Ohio State, Michigan. Absolutely. I'm sure many of you who regularly follow or subscribe to Locked On Big Ten probably agree with me on that one. So this thing started all the way back in 1897 when Michigan beat Ohio State 34-0. In all, they've played 118 times. Michigan leads the series 60, 51, and 6 ties. Michigan owns the largest margin of victory in this series, 86-0 back in 1902. The longest winning streak up until the 1900s. Of course, there was 9, but then we're going to talk about in a minute what kind of role Ohio State has been on lately prior to the previous 2 years. So we're going to get into all that. This game had been played uninterrupted from 1918 until 2020 when the game was canceled due to the pandemic. Although Buckeye fans will tell you that the Wolverines dodged them that year because the team had been struggling and on a bit of a skid. And I talk about streaks. Okay, so Ohio State had won 8 straight in the series and 15 of the last 16 at that time. So both sides, I told you that Michigan has one time won 9 in a row. back in the day. Ohio State had won 8 in a row, 15-16. Both of these teams have had their streaks over the years. The origin of this game included memories of a territorial war, the Toledo War, which was a boundary dispute between the state of Ohio and the adjoining territory of Michigan over the Toledo Strip. Control of the Maumee River was at stake. This was a big deal back. And so these people in this region, these two regions, have been arguing, fighting, and disagreeing for a long, long time. Over the years, this game included classics like the 1950 Snow Game, or the Snow Bowl, if you will. The Ohio blizzard was so bad that both teams exchanged 45 punts. In fact, there were times on first down that the teams would kick just because they had a better chance of having the other team fumble near their old goal line. So they're punting on first down in this thing in the blizzard. Michigan won that game, by the way, 9-3 without a single first down or a single forward pass in the game. The Buckeyes at the time were coached by a guy by the name of Wes Fessler, and his play calling was criticized so much in that game that he was replaced by Woody Hayes at that point. So that's how Woody came onto the scene here at Ohio State. And between 1951 and 1968, Hayes and his Buckeyes won 12 of 18 games, including a win in 1957 at Michigan Stadium. That was the first game in this series to have over 100,000 fans in attendance. Ohio State won the 1968 game 50-14, and they even attempted a 2-point conversion on its final touchdown, even though the game was at hand. In fact, Woody Hayes was asked afterward, the game was in hand. Why did you go for 2? His answer was, because they wouldn't let me go for 3. This rivalry was heated back in the day. Wolverines coach Bump Elliott resigned after the game, and Michigan hired the head coach from Miami of Ohio named Bo Schembechler. And before becoming the coach at Miami of Ohio, Bo had been an assistant at Ohio State under Woody Hayes. So the battle between these two over the next decade, from 1969 to 1978, is referred to as the 10-Year War. And from 1970 to 1975, Ohio State and Michigan met 4 times, while both were ranked in the top 5 in the AP poll. In fact, in 1973, both teams entered the annual battle undefeated, with the winner eyeing a trip to the Rose Bowl. The problem was they played to a 10-10 tie. Didn't settle anything on it. And it was at Ann Arbor. They didn't settle anything that day. And so the other athletic directors of the Big Ten, they had to vote on who would be the Big Ten rep in the Rose Bowl. And Michigan quarterback Dennis Franklin had been hurt in the game. And so the ADs voted, and they decided to send Ohio State. Some felt it was because they felt that Michigan would not be at full strength without their quarterback. And so Ohio State went to the Rose Bowl. Others felt that politics were at play here. Rumor has it that Michigan State had the deciding vote, and they went against Michigan and voted for Ohio State back in the day. But we don't have proof of that. That's just legend to the story. But Bo Schembechler said it was the greatest travesty of his career at Michigan, the way that situation was handled. He thought Michigan deserved to go to the Rose Bowl that year. Well, the final game between Woody and Bo was in 1978. Michigan won that game 14-3 and gave Bo a 5-4-1 record against Ohio State at that time. Woody Hayes was fired a month later for punching a Clemson player on the sidelines of the Gator Bowl. I'll tell you about the most memorable game that I can recall. And that goes back to the 2006 game for me. That's when the game was referred to as the game of the century. This was big. This was a lot of hype. Both teams were 11-0 like they are this year. And they were ranked 1-2 in the standings. Ohio State was the number 1 team in the country. Michigan was ranked number 2. Now, sadly, what even makes this game even more special, the night before the game, Bo Schembechler passed away. Right on the eve of the Ohio State-Michigan game, he passed away, and his memory weighed in heavily on the game. They had all sorts of tributes to him and moments of silence and whatnot. The Buckeyes won that game 42-39 in a shootout to win the Big Ten and won the right to play in the BCS championship. 22 million people watched that game that day. Don't forget, after Saturday's Ohio State-Michigan game, Lockdown Big Ten here on YouTube. We're going to go live on our YouTube channel right after the game. I'm thinking this will be somewhere between 3 and 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday. We'll hit it live right here on Lockdown Big Ten. Invite you to join us. We'll take your live comments, your live reaction, your immediate reaction following the game. Would love to hear all of that. Your comments are always welcome on YouTube and Twitter as well, or X at Talk Big Ten. Coming up, there are other games in the Big Ten this weekend, and many of them are big, deep, long rivalries going against each other. So we will talk about all of that, preview all of them for you. It's all coming up right here in 1 minute on Lockdown Big Ten. I want to tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy for a football team, or maybe even you with your ride or die. Let's talk about it. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, or just looking good, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So I want to thank everybody, of course, right now for making Lockdown Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, or share, follow, and like Lockdown Big Ten, no matter how you get this podcast, and check it out every day. And if you're meeting with family or friends over the holidays here, and you know that they're Big Ten people, they're alum, they're fans, tell them about our podcast, Lockdown Big Ten. We would really appreciate it. All right. So weekend play starts tonight, Friday. And in fact, depending on what time you consume this podcast, it may be going on right now as we speak. And Iowa, 17th ranked Iowa at 9-2, taking on 5-6 Nebraska, noon CBS. And the Hawkeyes, of course, clinched the Big Ten West title already, and they'll play the winner of Ohio State, Michigan next week for the Big Ten championship. No matter what happens in this game, the Hawkeyes and Coach Kirk Ferentz have had a remarkable season. Also, despite all their injuries, losing the starting quarterback, 2 starting tight ends. They lost Cooper DeJean, who is the most versatile player on defense and played a little bit of offense, a couple snaps on offense, and returned punts. He was out. I've said this before, and it's not tongue in cheek. Their punter, Torrey Taylor, might be the MVP of this team. Seriously. Meanwhile, Nebraska, they desperately need a win for Matt Rule to become bowl eligible, and are coming off a missed opportunity last week in an overtime loss against Wisconsin. And the Huskers, interesting side story here, are on their third and I think most promising starting quarterback of the season. I'm talking about Chubba Purdy. You know the name, the brother of Brock Purdy, the quarterback of the 49ers. He came in last week. I thought he looked pretty good, to be honest with you, both on the ground and in the air. So we'll see how that storyline plays out again with the Iowa-Nebraska game. Tonight, Friday night, Penn State, 9-2, 11th ranked, taking on Michigan State, 4-7, 7:30 on NBC, the nationally televised game. This is at Ford Field in Detroit. By the way, fun fact, if you're a Spartans fan, Michigan State has won 6 of the last 10 meetings in this series, and we'll see how this plays out tonight. Also, Drew Aller had his shoulder banged up for Penn State last weekend, and he came out of the game against Rutgers. He's scheduled to play, and the Spartans would love to play spoiler here and close out a long season with a W, and then proceed with their coaching search to replace fired Mel Tucker. Maybe an announcement as soon as next week. We'll see. There's a reported list of finalists that we had on our previous podcast. We might be down to the Final Four. Saturday's game, one more note on Ohio State, Michigan. Game day, ESPN, they're supposed to be there. Big noon kickoff on Fox, they're supposed to be there. Barstool, which is a pretty popular pregame show, will be there as well. The word is in Ann Arbor that the fans, the big thing about these things is have these guys on the desk previewing a game, people, the crowd behind them holding up their signs and all that. The rumor is around Ann Arbor that people are trying to boycott the Game Day ESPN pregame show because a lot of Michigan people think that ESPN was unfair in their coverage of the Jim Harbaugh Spygate story. I'll leave that for you to decide, but we'll see where the crowds are on those relative pregame shows that are going on at the same time. So Ohio State 11-0, Michigan 11-0, 12 o'clock on Fox. Also on Saturday at 12 o'clock on the Big Ten Network, the 3-8 Indiana Hoosiers against the 3-8 Purdue Boilermakers. This will be rookie coach Ryan Walters' first look at the battle of the old Oaken Bucket. Both Walters and IU coach Tom Allen have had disappointing seasons this season. Interesting quarterback battle here in that with the Boilermakers, if they roll with Texas transfer Hudson Card, he was out last week, but I think he's going to play, and he has been disappointing. The transfer from Texas, I thought he was going to have a better year this year. Still another year of eligibility, so we'll see how he does. He had 12 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Not a great ratio there. Meanwhile, the Hoosiers have been led by Brendan Sorsby. Brendan's improved a little bit each and every week throughout the season, to his credit and to Tom Allen's credit as well. He's thrown 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. On defense, look for the Hoosiers. Aaron Casey, he's all over the place. He's got 13 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. He'll be playing in the NFL someday. Meanwhile, the Boilermakers have a young defensive back that is an exciting player to watch, Dylan Thieneman. He has 92 tackles. He's all over the place. You'll hear his name a bunch of times in the broadcast. He's got 4 interceptions and 5 pass breakups. And in fact, he has been named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week 4 times in the last 12 weeks. Pretty good. I think he's going to have a nice career there with the Boilermakers. Elsewhere, Northwestern at 6-5 at Illinois, taking on the 5-6 Fighting Illini. That's the 3:30 game on the Big Ten Network. First of all, with the Wildcats, let's start with them. David Braun, his team's going to a bowl for in his first year. An amazing story coming off the hazing scandal, taking over the job as soon as he got there as defensive coordinator. 1 win last year, 6 already here. Brett Bielema for the Fighting Illini. Their team, they either lose or they win games that go down to the wire. They're the cardiac kids of the Big Ten this year, and they're looking for another win so they can get bowl eligible. So they might be the more desperate team here this weekend. 6-5 Wisconsin is taking on 5-6 Minnesota at Minnesota. That's the 3:30 game on FS1. Running back Braylon Allen returned to the lineup last week. As you saw, he wasn't even supposed to play in that game for Wisconsin, and he ends up scoring the winning touchdown in overtime, and that made the Badgers bowl eligible. Meanwhile, a little bit of pressure here on PJ Fleck. I think they expected a little bit more out of this team this year. They did have a lot of injuries, but they do have a lot of sound football players. I think their DBs are good. I think their offensive line is good. And this is a good football team. They need that 6th win to become bowl eligible. And we'll see how and they're at home. So we'll see if that helps them out on this one. And also we have 2 6-5 teams, the Maryland Terps and Rutgers, going at it at 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. And both of these teams are going bowling at 6-5. I think this one's pretty simple. I think Maryland and quarterback Talia Tagovailoa have way better offense, obviously, and Greg Schiano's defense at Rutgers is way better than the Terps. So we'll see. Maryland offense, Rutgers defense to close out the Big Ten regular season. That's the last game of the day. Let me also tell you about something brand new. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So you can go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe. The first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You will even see this show on there from time to time as well. So we have our last Pigskin Picks of the regular season. Going to share those with you. We've had a pretty good hot streak so far. So all those are coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Maybe you've been to a game recently. Somebody had to get the tickets. So I want to tell you about Gametime and their app. You can browse through their Gametime app and you can get all kinds of upcoming events, get tickets to these events everywhere. I'm talking concerts, comedy shows, baseball, football, basketball, all year round. They have it all. They got last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, And the part I like the best, you can look on your phone and it has a picture of the view of the ticket you're about to buy before you buy it. Gametime has deals right up to the start of the event, even an hour after if you're running late. And it's very simple. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and the redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's take a look at our Pigskin Picks. We are going to go full screen with this. If you're listening on audio, I'll describe it in detail. And here we go. And of course, any lines that we use are from our friends at FanDuel. So let me take this off the screen as well. Okay, so we got, I'm going to back up just a second there, get ahead of ourselves. So Iowa at Nebraska. And that is a 3-point spread for Nebraska. I'm going to take Nebraska on this one. I've been a big fan of Iowa all season long. By the way, these point spreads brought to you by FanDuel. So always like to get those in there as well. And the over-under, another record 26. The last 3 weeks, Iowa has set a record for the lowest over-under total from Vegas, from FanDuel, everybody. It's been 31, it's been 28, it's been crazy. 26. Army Navy doesn't even go that low. 26. And I think this is the game of limbo where you dance underneath the low bar. This is the one where I'm going to jump over the bar. I think this one gets over that number. I've taken unders on Iowa all season long on their games. That's just too low for me. That is too low. 26. I think this game will have 28 to 30 points in it. But I'll take Nebraska because they are desperate, more desperate than Iowa here. Always take the more desperate team when the situation's on the line here. They've got to get a win to get bowl eligible. Iowa already has its not only bowl eligible, but it's going to the Big Ten championship game. That's already a lock, winning the West. Penn State at Michigan State at Ford Field Friday night. Penn State's going to win this game. You know, Michigan's won 6 of 10, by the way, in this series. But there's no way Penn State covers the 21. I think Michigan keeps this close, and I think the over-under is right at 43.5. Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan is a 3-point favorite in this game. 45.5 is the total. I think it goes past the total. These are two good defenses, though. I've been waffling on this all week long. I'm going to say Michigan wins but doesn't cover. I think it's like a 1 or 2 point game, right? So give me Ohio State with the points, but Michigan with the win. How's that? I just decided. I went back and forth all week. Indiana and Purdue for the Old Oaken Bucket. It's Purdue 3.5 and the over-under at 51.5. I think this blows past the number. This is a high-scoring game where nobody stops anybody. And I'm going to take Purdue to win this football game. I think Purdue's just a little bit better than the Hoosiers, plus it being home at Purdue, season finale there and all. Northwestern at Illinois. Again, going with my rule, more desperate team. Illinois needs this. 6 is a lot of points, though. I don't know if they cover the 6, but Illinois will win this game to become bowl eligible, and Northwestern already going to a bowl game. Same philosophy here with Wisconsin and Minnesota. Minnesota is the desperate team. They're at home. They need to win to get to the bowl game. I'm going to take Minnesota for the upset over Wisconsin, who is a 2.5 point favorite. And Maryland Rutgers. Look at the Vegas, FanDuel. They all think this is a flip of the coin. A 1 point Maryland win here is what they're looking at. Maryland, good offense. Rutgers, bad defense. So I don't know about this over under at 44. I think this could be like, I don't know. Rutgers has 10 to 7 games in the half, 7-0 at the half. I don't know. I think it's going to be under. And I think Maryland does eke out a win. I think they do. But like I said, this one could go either way. So that's how I'm looking at that one. All right. So we'll take that. Those are our picks. And also real quick, I went 5-2 last week, 79-20 overall on the season. Thought I'd throw that in there as well. All right. Many ways for you to interact with me here over the holiday weekend. Don't forget, hit me up on Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten. And there we go. At Talk Big Ten number 10. Don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. That's with the number 10. Or you can hit me up here on YouTube as well. I'm gonna mow through some of these, a lot of all the comments and the responses. You guys have been great with that. And one more reminder: we will go live on this YouTube channel, Locked On Big Ten, live on YouTube immediately following the Ohio State-Michigan game on Saturday. Again, probably gonna be between 3 and 3:30 ish. We'll just come on live. We'll take your comments. I'll give you mine, and we'll have live reaction as soon as that game is over. Be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Also, don't forget, I just told you that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today. Check that out. Subscribe there as well. In the meantime, have a great day. Enjoy the games. Talk to you live on Saturday, and be back on a regular schedule on Monday as well. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Shemon.